Any other questions for the public hearing? Hearing no other questions, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move to item number 6. Item number 6 is for discussion and for possible action, consideration to approve amending Ordinance 2 to incorporate into a single document previous amendments and resolutions revising Ordinance 2, as well as new revisions further modifying Ordinance 2. Kevin, you want to take that?
There's not much more to say about it. I provided a report in your board packet on summarizing again the history of Ordinance 2 and the cleanup things that we've done in the adding of the Ordinance 2 transfer. Documents, those provided the legal review and drafting of the rules, so it's gone through that process. And staff has looked at it and recommends that the board review and approve the Ordinance 2 as amended.
Was it prior to then there was 3 Ordinance 2 document, or is it original and 2 amendments? So really this document is just combining those 3 into one single document, and then it's added that item 8, the transferability. This is referencing that, and that's what will come back at a later date to really flesh that out. What that pertains to.
That's correct. It does do that. It does combine the prior documents into one document. There's also some basic changes that were made, basically to remove some of the just wide open discretion that may have been in there before. So that is changed, so the board's aware of that. There is some slightly different language in there, which I think legally is important to the district. I think it's fair to the public, and it puts the district in a better position with a superior Ordinance 2. However, what I do want to clarify as well is that this has not been a comprehensive review of Ordinance 2. I mean, this is basically taking, as Aaron and Kevin described, taking these prior documents, combining them into one, making those basic kind of constitutional changes. But as far as like a full examination and evaluation of Ordinance 2, that has not taken place. And that may be something that we're going to be, staff may be working on in the future, and may come back before the board with something else. So these were just some very basic changes as an initial revision to Ordinance 2.
And that number 8, it's not refundable under any circumstances. There's always a circumstance. But
there'll be a presented circumstance, whether it's legitimate or not. That's the question I had, where it talks about in limited circumstances where the transfer request strictly complies with the district's operating rules, regulations, and rates. That's to come forth to comply with the transferability. So I just, you wrote it. We're comfortable that.
I don't know that I understand the question.
Well, I mean, I think this is one of the sections that got changed because we're going to allow the transferability of them.
Correct.
In 8 it says that those have been paid may be transferable in limited circumstances. I just don't want to get into some gray areas where, there's preferential treatment because somebody thought it was based on, our judgment here that it was limited. We thought it was limited, but somebody else comes in and it's,
Yeah, no, good question. Let's see if I can address that. Absolutely, there will never be a situation where we're going to have developers that are treated differently. Every developer is going to absolutely have to be treated exactly the same way. Every developer that comes in and meets the criteria that staff has put together based on the prior meeting when NRC came in and requested this, that kind of brought all of this to the surface. The board was pretty clear as to what the conditions would be, and essentially we've mirrored what we did in the transferability of impact fees and water meters. And there were some very specific legal things that we put in place in those transfers that are also as critical in this situation with Ordinance 2. There's not going to be a situation where one developer gets it and another developer doesn't get it based on preferential treatment. Any developer that meets that very strict criteria will be able to get those transferred. The difference between transferability and then Rich referred to refundability. Under no circumstances And I think this is consistent with
Right,
the
that's-
way we've always held this, is that under no circumstances will ordinance 2 be refundable. Limited circumstances where it will be transferable based on what the board ultimately decides as far as the criteria and the rules and regs.
Okay, just want to be consistent. Sorry.
Yeah, I've got some concerns, but obviously we're not talking about that when we come to the operating rules and regulations, right?
Yeah.
And Board, if I could just raise an issue that come up, when we had the conversation about this, I went back and was looking, and I ran into, I was looking through the books, and I found a notation by accounting that said refund of ordinance 2, and I panicked. I thought, no, that's not consistent, and I went in and looked, and in fact, it was not a refund. What had happened is somebody had paid, a double paid a fee. And that's not deemed to be a refund of ordinance 2, but
Yeah,
they paid one ordinance 2.
They overpaid, and then they're just getting.
Then they're just getting money back
They overpaid.
that wasn't necessary to be paid. But on the books, on the notation in the records, it showed, it was noted as a refund of ordinance 2. And so I did my research to make sure that we had not in fact done any of that. So I raised that point because that's an example of where it might look like we've done a refund when in fact we did not. Does that make sense? Okay.
Any other questions or comments? For a motion from the board?
I move to approve amending ordinance 2 to incorporate into a single document previous amendments and resolutions revising ordinance 2 as well as new revisions for modifying ordinance 2.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.